Twins get the win. They split the series with Tampa. Final score 4-3. Pablo, fantastic again. We're breaking it all down next on the Locked On Twins postcast.
You are Locked On Twins postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back in the lab, back at it. Another Twins postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man. Back-to-back nights, putting in the work. Theo Tollefson, at Theo Tollefson, Twins expert over at Zone Coverage MN. Hey, Theo, here's a nerdy stat for you. That had to be the longest umpire review in MLB history we got in the eighth inning. 20 minutes minimum. Good gravy.
It was 13 minutes between pitches.
Okay, it felt like 20.
It felt much longer, yes.
Good gravy. Plenty to jump into, but before we get into all that, quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, Game 4 versus Tampa. Pablo Day coming off maybe his best start of the year. That was last Friday. Twins get on the board first. They get finally some run support for their starting pitcher, Ed Julian, of all people. 3-run shot. That scores Miranda. That scores Santana. 3-0. Top two. Wallner solo shot, his 11th home run of the year. That makes it 4-0. Rays down 4-2 in the 7th. Diaz hits this ground rule double. Again, felt like the longest umpire review in at least my life. But Wallner crashed into the wall. He flipped over the right field fence. Anyways, super long delay. Again, it felt like it. I wonder if that's why Rocco decided to pull Pablo. Jax comes in, cleans up the 7th. Looked fantastic in the 8th. 9th inning, Duran comes in. Ring him up, sit him down, 1, 2, 3. Huge momentum or huge victory, I should say, for momentum. Huge win for morale, especially heading into this Kansas City series tomorrow, which we'll get into. But as always, just start biggest takeaways, kind of your A topics. Then we'll do a deep dive on Pablo next.
Yeah, Julian had his first home run since his last multi-home run game on April 25th. I mean, he's gone 5 months nearly in the majors without a home run. Obviously, he's had a few down in AAA during his stints down there, but that was just a huge momentum changer for him. Finally showing something here, signs of life at the major league level before things get a little dire coming down the stretch. So big of him to, get that in there. And then Wallner getting the insurance run, which really made the difference, which was huge. And then obviously later in the game, he had that full momentum run into right field. And I mean, it's a good thing they took the time on it and explained it, but it probably took a little longer than it needed to because they got it right the first time. It's a ground rule double because the outfielder, I mean, you rarely see them go full sprint into the stands, but at that point, what else can you rule it as? Because the ball's out of play with the player. You can't obviously throw it. So they got it right. Took a little longer, but it's good in the end.
All right, let's dive into Pablo Day. Again, really starting to heat up at the right time. He goes 6 2/3. Tried everything. It felt like he tried everything he could to talk Rocco into letting him finish the 7th after that long umpire review we just talked about. 7 hits, 3 earned, 1 walk, 9 Ks, 91 pitches. Talk to me about his day. And part 2 of this, too. I know we'll talk about playoff picture here in probably segment 3 in a minute, but how good do you feel all of a sudden in a Game 1 playoff scenario with this version of Pablo Lopez on the mound?
You feel pretty good about it overall. I mean, I think because they chipped away at him in the 7th and there were 13 minutes between, his last pitch and Griffin Jack's first, that's a huge reason as to why you take him out. And when there's that type of delay in the game, I mean, I can't really argue with Rocco in making that decision. And Jax threw 1 pitch and got them out 7th. So it all worked out in the end. But I mean, that's sharp. I mean, 2 to 3 runs, quality start. Obviously, his scoreless streak ended here this afternoon, which is a bit of a disappointment, but you got the results you needed from him in the best case scenario and keeping this game close. So you got to take what you can get, and you got to hope, if this is his rough version of what we see in the playoffs, that's something I think we can all live with. 6 2/3 quality innings, and then you get to Jackson Duran, and then, get a victory.
How much would you give to hear that conversation taking place at the mound? It's all kind of the same throughout the entire league, throughout baseball, really. Pitcher's got the glove over his mouth. Manager's got his hand over the mouth. Can't really see it, but it was like a 45, 60-second conversation. You just felt like, again, Rocco was just trying to maybe explain the situation to him. Again, that long delay, perhaps. I don't know, but I just love hearing those insider info conversations because they're usually pretty unique. We usually talk about injuries in segment 2, as you know. I feel like we should get this out of the way. You were at CH Field last night. Buxton tweaked that hip. Then he gets ejected, only ended up playing 3 innings. The plan all along was to kind of, ramp him back up. He was supposed to come back for this Kansas City series. That starts tomorrow. I know they didn't want him coming back on this Tampa Bay turf for his first game back, so that I guess kind of made sense. But the plan was, if all went well, 7 innings on Monday in St. Paul, 9 innings last night. Obviously, that didn't happen. Now there's this whole hip discomfort thing he's dealing with. So what in the world do we expect to happen with this kind of new timeline, I guess, moving forward?
It's too early to say to have any real idea of where this is heading because, I did not notice anything in particular with how he was playing last night that showed signs of he retweaked the hip. It might have been something in that first at bat that I didn't really catch as closely as I could have. But that timeline setback is a big difference because, Twins were expecting him back this weekend and it would have been huge to have his presence back in the lineup. But I think we're now at the point where we were so optimistic a month ago before he went down with his injury, he would hit 100 games again. I don't even know if that's even going to happen this year now. And it's just so bad that this narrative cannot go away for him.
Dude, absolutely ridiculous. Buxton, we all know by now, expect the worst, hope for the best. But for me, this season specifically, it's everyone else on top of Buxton that's just been such a brutal pill to swallow, specifically the guy on the top, the guy you're paying all the money to. You know who I'm talking about. It sounds like the vibe is he's nowhere near close to coming back, at least anytime soon from the sound of it. I don't think he's going to be shelved for the entire year by any means, but he ain't coming back, in the next series or two. At least that's the vibe. I guess it kind of just feels like knowing he's still probably at least a week or 2 away. Then he's probably going to need like a big ramp up period. So tack on maybe another week at least on top of that. I guess I'm supposed to just pencil him in for like playoff series October 1st. Like, I
think our best case scenario right now is he sits out the remainder of this week and next week. He comes back to rehab during the Saints' final homestand, their final week of the season. And then, they activate him for the final 6 games of the season, which is not great. You wanted more than 80 half the season from Carlos Correa, even though he was playing at all-star level. He got to the all-star game. You can't take that away from him despite this injury. But yeah, it's a massive disappointment to only get him for half the season and then have him just barely ramp back up right as you're about to start the playoff series. And of course, you can play him cautiously against the Marlins. That's going to be an easy series where, you can just put him in for 2 of those 3 games, take things easy for him, take him out in the later innings if you don't want him to be, overworked. And you can easily have Brooksley, Willie Castro, whoever play at shortstop while he's back on the bench. But I think you need him back for that last weekend in the regular season against Baltimore, because if you don't have him there, that's really going to be just a much tougher series than it already is on paper.
Right. Yeah, not the ideal scenario at all. Dude, if I told you July 12th or whenever he went out that he wouldn't be back until late September, early October, 1st-ish, let's just say, what would you have said? Because I know for a fact no one thought or even had an inkling he'd miss basically the entire second half of the season like he has thus far.
No, I think it would have been – I think there was anticipation, just given how poorly he played with plantar fasciitis last season, that there was going to be more time lost than originally anticipated, because I don't think I even believed it would be a week. I think he was going to be out till the trade deadline and now here we are, only 4 weeks left in the season, and it's just not looking great whatsoever. So yeah, you got to hope for the best there. He can get back, rehabbing with 1 week left in the Saints season. But it's it's just so hard to jump the gun on these things.
It really is. But to your point, let me ask you this: like, where's the happy medium when it comes to hey, we're fighting for our lives here as a team. It's crunch time. We're barely holding our heads above water. We'll take a 70 or 80% healthy Carlos Correa. We'll take anything we can get right now versus, and especially with Correa, it feels like specifically, it feels like he's got this certain level of a standard, if you will, and he won't suit up and go out there and play unless he knows he can play at that level he's kind of used to playing at, so to speak. But given where we're at again in the season, the predicament they're in, beggars can't be choosers, right? Like, you wait too long, season's over, man. So where's that happy medium right now between Rocco and Correa? How do you think those conversations are kind of playing out behind the scenes, knowing what you know about both of them, their expectations and their personalities too?
I think, no, this is going to play out exactly how it did a year ago. Because if you remember, I mean, he was out with the same injury, different foot again.
Right.
And they pretty much ramped him back up at the very end of the season. He didn't do a rehab stint with the Saints and then came back. This time it sounds like he's going to. So I think they're going to try to aim for that happy medium of, it's not ideal, but you got to get back for the last 6 games of the season while we're at home. And, at least there's the flexibility at the second half of this month for him to still be in the Twin Cities, doesn't have to travel with the team, can stay with the Saints, can, take his time getting readjusted. If it is the whole week he rehabs, it's the whole week. And I'm sure there'll be off days fit in there. But, I mean, you got to get him ramped up. And I think that's going to be the best case scenario where he might finally say something when they're back for this next homestand. And he's in that 75 to 80%. Because I think it's fair to say he was at that last postseason, and he still played very well, especially with the 1-1 against Houston. So I think there is cautious optimism we're going to see that happen again. But until we get more word on it, we're just not going to know.
Deshaun Kelsey sighting, which you'd know better than anyone covering the Saints as long as you have. Sounds like it's been long overdue. This guy's had a promotion coming for a while now. Almost had a great running catch at the wall in the 8th. Couldn't hold on to it. But tell us about him, just kind of the quick scouting report.
Well, fortunately, being at last night's game, waiting outside the clubhouse to do post-game interviews, things took a little longer because the team was celebrating his call-up. And then I saw him come out of the Cublet house, talk to his wife, and I knew hear word for word, but I knew exactly what he was saying to her and their reactions and all the other player wives and girlfriends and their reactions. Man. I was very happy there to be there and witness that moment for a major leaguer for the first time. So things moved quick for him. But, I mean, he is probably going to be their best defender in the outfield in Buxton's current absence. I mean, Wallner's got the better arm when it comes to throwing, and I don't think even Kersey's going to argue that. But in terms of just outstanding defense, he's got that. He's got some of the best base running skills, just 36 stolen bases on the season with the Saints. He tied their AAA franchise record with 75 RBI last night. So, I mean, he's got a good mix of contact, some power, and a lot of good speed and defense out in the outfield that will really play to their advantage. And, I know Hellman was the pinch runner for Jeffers in the top of the 9th if they potentially have to run since he was already in the game. Right. But, I think there are going to be a lot of opportunities, especially if there are left-handed heavy starting, left-handed starters, and you go right-handed heavy lineup to start the game. He's definitely going to enter the game, if not as a pinch hitter when they get into the bullpen, definitely as a pinch runner, because he has those advantages. And, he is 27 years old, and obviously some people will have that gripe on the age thing, but I think having him here is definitely a big asset and really will fill Buxton's shoes more than people are going to realize because of what he can do on defense. And that's exactly what they need. And all around on this team, especially after last night's loss, like they need someone who can be defense first, bat second, and that's what he provides.
Rocco report time, game 4 versus Tampa. The Rocco report, it says what?
I think we can go back to what we were talking about earlier and just praise him for putting Jackson when he did. I mean, again, if it weren't for that review taking as long as it did, I think he would have left Pablo. If it was 5 minutes, I think Pablo would have stayed in, but it just took too long. But at the same time, when the reliever comes in, throws one pitch, gets them out of the inning, you can't really complain about that.
No. All right. Plenty more deep dive from this one. Plus, got that nerdy stat of the day. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience, the formula for winning championships. Also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors, they got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up. to the ultimate peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, they got it all. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, they got you covered. 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back with all the parts you need at the prices you want. Easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Okay, I want to get just a little sneak peek into 2025, what this might look like for the Twins. Let's just start with the pitching stuff, just kind of rapid fire here. It feels pretty damn encouraging, to say the least. Maybe the most encouraged we've been able to feel about a pitching staff entering the year for this team in a long time. I'll just put it that way. So what's the starting five look like if you had to guess? And who are the biggest wild cards of the group, like the Chris Paddocks, maybe Louis Varlands, etc.? What's their roles look like if you just had to take an educated guess?
Educated guess, the starting five would be Lopez, Ryan, Ober, Woods Richardson, and Festa. I think it's going to be very hard, but they're going to try to do something to move Paddock's contract off the books if they're reducing payroll. But his injury history is going to make it very hard for any team to really be able to bite on that. I think Varland, after last night's game especially, I think he's going to move into a reliever role, and I think he could honestly be the left-handed version of Glenn Perkins in the best case scenario. So, that's Perkins was left-handed. I meant right-handed version. I think that's what we're looking at now for him. I think, the starter trials have gone on long enough for him that it's just time for him to move to the bullpen. And, Zebby Matthews, he's made such a great rise through the system to get where he's at now. But, I mean, I don't see any harm in him starting the season in AAA, taking a little more time to work himself out. And, I think Festa's definitely proven himself. Woods Richardson's definitely proven himself as well, that those two will probably finish out the bottom half of the rotation. So, yeah, I think that's like the early outlook on things right now. And maybe things will change, but I think that's like the blueprint I'm going to work with when I start doing my offseason, depth chart pieces.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, I feel like that is very encouraging. Maybe the most encouraged starting rotation, at least of young core talent that you're trying to build and develop. We know Kepler won't be here. I'm just thinking about outfield now. What's the outfield look like? We know Kepler won't be here. Is there a chance we see Manuel Rodriguez at all next year? Maybe what's the plan for him? Is
next
he like
year, yeah.
Safety? Okay, is he like the safety blanket for Buxton in center field, or what's that blueprint look like?
I think if things develop well for him, because he's only played 3 games in the last week and a half. So it's still very hard to say, but him being in AAA right now is just a matter of, it's still the longest season of any of the minor league affiliates. He's ready. He's definitely ready to be there, but you want him to get as much playing time as possible.
Yeah.
Probably send him to the Arizona Fall League as well, just so he can get more reps there. I think it's very safe to assume. I mean, that's still a few weeks out before they make those announcements, but I think he's definitely a viable candidate to be there and get some really good playing time. And as long as he stays healthy, because his injury was with his thumb and not, anything leg related, but it's still something that kept him out for a considerable amount of time. I think he could definitely be a viable person in this lineup. And I know the last 2 nights were really special for him, just hitting behind Byron Buxton during his rehab stint and just having that early experience, because I think that's something that would definitely be amazing to see with the Twins lineup next year. But I think Kersey, they both provide an easier transition for, I know it's probably going to be something Buxton fights against, but, if he's at that point where center field's no longer viable and he moves to left field, I mean, you got some really solid guys with those two, and then you got Walker Jenkins coming up years down the road. So the center field future is not grim. It's going to be hard for Buxton to make that transition, but I think it's a lot easier to know if he's going to be hurt. There are a lot of talented guys coming up through the system to fill in during his absence.
Yeah, good breakdown there. I was just going to say The Athletic just dropped their updated top 50 prospects. Twins with 2 guys on the list. number 3rd prospect in all of baseball, Walker Jenkins, and the 22nd prospect in baseball, Emmanuel Rodriguez. So 2 studs kind of waiting in the wings when the time is ready to plug into the Twins somehow, some way. Last note on this updated list, by the way, go check it out. It's up on The Athletic. Tigers have the top 2 prospects in all of baseball, bang, bang, 1 and 2, Jackson Jobe, Max Clark. So that's unreal. Twins have the number 3. Guardians have the number 4, this year's first overall pick, Travis Bazzana. So the AL Central, dude, top 4 prospects in all of baseball. That's kind of crazy to think about.
I mean, we're already seeing it right now with, all these guys who were top prospects in the game 2-3 years ago. Bobby Witt Jr. being a very good standout in all of that. Riley Green and, the Central could have a winning record collectively as a division if it weren't for the White Sox being as bad as they were.
Just dragging them.
No, the White Sox. No,
down.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's very fun. It's like everyone's there. They're possibly all going to have a winning record. And then there's the White Sox. So
just tanking the average over there. I was just going to say, too, the White Sox have the 7th ranked guy, Noah Schultz, big monster, 6'9" lefty pitcher. So 5 of the top 7 prospects in all of baseball right now, according to the Athletics top 50, all in the AL Central. That's absolutely wild. Last one, just speaking again of young talent, right? Twins infield, a lot of young, high-end, premium talent. Brooks Lee, Royce, Correa, Miranda. Any idea what's the opening day infield look like? What's the biggest change you kind of foresee happening? Is Santana back, you think? Was that a 1-year rental? What's that look like?
I'm going to just work on the assumption Santana's gone because of financial constraints. So I think it's actually going to look like Miranda, Julian platooning first base for the most part. I think Royce and Brooks make a switch. Royce is second base, Brooks Lee third, and then you have Correa at shortstop.
That makes sense on paper. That makes sense. I feel like if just you had to draw it up, just knee-jerk reaction, I think that's the one that most people would probably draw. And I'm with you. I agree. I feel like it's 20 to 30% chance, less than 50-50 by a substantial margin. They keep Santana due to financial restraints, but we'll see how all that shakes out for sure. Nerdy stat of the daytime. You got some sort of crazy stat or fun analytic Twins related?
Yeah, I mean, the Twins and Rays played a lot of close baseball this season. All but their game yesterday were decided by 1 run.
Wow, really? I told you before we came on here, I said that was a fun game. If you just sat down and watched a random Twins baseball game, 162 to choose from. That was, I'm not saying that was the most dramatic or like thrilling, but it was just a good game, man. Kind of back and forth and got pretty dramatic and intense there, those 7th, 8th, and 9th innings as well. So that was solid. I like that. All right, don't go anywhere. Got to preview Twins, Kansas City. That starts tomorrow night, and that's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode also brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members to date. And for me and my money, it's just by far the easiest. It's the most exciting way to get in on all the action while you watch your favorite sports and you watch your favorite players. So simple. All you got to do, you pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, and you watch the winnings roll in. Baseball season still in full swing here. So strikeouts, RBIs, home runs, you name it, they got it. Take your pick on more or less. Add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Plus, they now offer Apple Pay, quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Download the Prize Picks app. Use code, all lowercase, Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Okay. Twins, Kansas City next, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Kansas City. And I guess I know this feels like a huge series because you're tied with Kansas City, and it is for sure. But honestly, like just a quick little snapshot look around the American League right now. And, Boston's not playing good baseball. Seattle's not really playing great baseball. I guess, how do I want to put this? I know we don't know which teams are locked into what seeds, but would it be safe to say that the teams themselves feel pretty locked in as far as like which teams are getting in and which teams will miss the cut? Like it feels like we kind of got our 6.
Yeah. So the Red Sox, Tigers, and Mariners are all at records of 70-70 on the season. 5.5 games back of Kansas City right now for the final wild card spot. I wouldn't say that last spot is completely locked in because one of those 3 teams can catch fire and surprise us all. I'm not going to rule that out yet. So as of right now, the Twins are staggering and staying alive. 4 games back of Cleveland now. Both them and the Guardians and Kansas City both have off days today, which is a big help to their situation right now. Good thing is Cleveland's playing one of the hottest teams in baseball this weekend with the Dodgers in
Love
LA.
that.
So that can really play to the Twins' advantages as long as they play some of their better baseball than they had against the Rays to start the week against the Royals. Now, the Royals are not on a good streak. I think they are 3-7 in their last 10. So you're hoping to catch them at the right time, even though you are also 4-6 in your last 10. So, I mean, the good thing is the schedule is probably the easiest it's going to be with what remains over these next 3 series between the Royals, then the Angels at home for 3, and then the Reds at home for 3. That's going to be the easiest stretch. I know the Marlins are in there at the end, but I really don't want to count out the Red Sox for your final road trip weekend series.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, they're not doing great right now, but they can still be spoilers. You still got the 4-game series in Cleveland. So this is where, if you're going to catch fire and try to put some separation, at least between you and Kansas City, and hopefully really narrow that gap between you and Cleveland, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, mathematically, this thing's still wide open. You cannot count anybody out. I get it. We don't know who's going to win the East. We don't know who's going to win the Central. Even Twins could end up as the 5 seed, 6 seed. Could they pull the impossible out, leapfrog Cleveland for the 2 seed, which, you just mentioned it. I know they got that tiebreaker, though. So that kind of turns a 4-game lead into a 5-game lead. And for me, it feels like an awful lot of ground to make up in 25-ish games. So,
yeah, the only series that like postseason slot that seems like a lock is the Brewers once again winning the NL Central, since St. Louis is in second place and 10 games behind them. That's the only game that seems like Well, actually, no. Cubs are in second place. I stand corrected. 9 games behind them. Those 2 teams have to do so much just to catch up with the Brewers, and their pitching has really just helped them to get where they're at. And they've been struggling too. I mean, Christian Yelich is out for the season. I mean, talk about having it rough.
Oof.
Twins fans at least have some hope that you're going to get Correa and Buxton back.
Right.
Brewers are going to have to do it without their best bat.
Yeah, that hurts for sure. You mentioned Kansas City, last one, then we'll get out of here. You mentioned Kansas City, they're slumping. Has only won 3 of their last 10, I think you said. What's the scouting report? What's the biggest storylines? We got Zebby coming off that rough outing in game 1. Bailey over game 2, SWR game 3. Well, what's the things to look for when it comes to like this head-to-head matchup specifically?
Can the Twins repeat their success off Brady Singer tomorrow night, who they crushed the last time he was out against them? And, obviously Zebby, everyone's going to be looking to see if he can really make things work for himself. He did well again in his major league debut against the Royals at Target Field. So can he make that success repeat itself on the road? That's the big question there. And then obviously Ober's last start in Kansas City is one for everyone to forget. So hopefully we're seeing the more refined, refurbished version of Ober we've seen for the majority of this season. And I think with Woods Richardson, it's just a matter of, can he at least provide some, 5 to 6 solid innings on the mound and make things a lot easier, because I don't think he's ever made a start. No, he has not ever made a start against the Royals in their ballpark. So this is, fresh ground for him as much as it is for Zebby Matthews. So we'll see how he does there.
Yeah, and of the 3 starting pitchers, you're circling game number 2, saying if you're going to win one, for sure, that's got to be the one you're going to win. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting for sure. We got to get out of here. Twins win game 4. They split with Tampa. Kansas City tomorrow. Huge series. Zebby on the mound for game 1. First pitch, 7:10 p.m. By the way, that's streaming on Apple Plus TV. If you want to check that broadcast out, that's probably the game to do it. Huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make it.
They're also on national TV Saturday night on Fox Sports. So 2 national games, obviously one through streaming, the other through actual cable. So a little easier accessibility for some people out there.
Finally, love that. Finally getting the national recognition the Minnesota, big market Minnesota Twins deserve. That's for sure. Make sure you go check out all of Theo's work on X at Theodore Tollefson, plus all the work he's always ripping up over at ZoneCoverageMN.com. Like this video. You got to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Help us get to 8,000 subscribers. That's always much, much appreciated. Theo Tollefson, Luke Inman on X, at Luke_Spinman. We'll see you next time. But until then, signing out.